It's not you who is considering leaving. Rather, it's your mind that is trying to talk you out of it before you've ever begun. That's precisely why the Lotus method is necessary. It's the structure to push those ideas aside, regain control, and motivate yourself to act. You're giving your mind the upper hand if you leave now. If you stick around, you'll eventually figure out how to win the fight. I believe you've decided to stick with it through to the conclusion, and that choice might potentially change your life. The majority of individuals would have given up by now, but not you. I'm proud of you because you're unique. I'm going to teach you something today that most people will never grasp. How to take complete control of your brain, hack it, and make it work for you rather than against you. This is your path to change, and it's the Lotus method. Let's get started. A 5-step structure called the Lotus method is intended to reprogram your brain to accept difficult things rather than shy away from them. Simple behavioral tricks and psychology are used in each stage to make even the most difficult jobs seem doable. This is what Lotus represents. L breaks in layers. O, get over opposition quickly. Trigger reward T. S, create micro-challenges. U, unleash visualization. Let's take a closer look at these. Imagine craning your neck upward at the base of Mount Everest until the peak vanishes into the clouds. That overwhelming feeling? This is the exact reason we steer clear of challenging circumstances. They appear too big to be true, but here's a secret. Even Everest can be conquered one step at a time. Peeling an onion is a metaphor for any major goal. You don't go all the way to it. By removing it layer by layer, you reveal a more manageable and smaller part of the issue behind. Writing a novel, for instance. Don't let the concept of, I need to write 300 pages, paralyze you. Rather say to yourself, I'll write one phrase today. Just one sentence, that's all. Dopamine is released in your brain when you accomplish that small victory, giving you a satisfying sense of achievement that makes you want more. You may think, well, maybe just one more sentence all of a sudden. This is more than just astute psychology. The natural reward system in your brain is acting in your favor rather than against you. Every tiny triumph gives the next one more impetus, transforming what had appeared to be an insurmountable mountain into a sequence of doable steps. Have you ever observed how a car's engine sputters on a chilly morning? The hardest key turn is always the first one. When faced with challenging activities, your brain functions similarly. It does everything it can to combat that early start. Here's the lovely trick though. Making your first move so small that it nearly seems foolish will help you get past this reluctance entirely. Let's say you're terrified of the 5-mile run. Keep your mind off the kilometers ahead. I'll put on my jogging shoes, you convince yourself. That's all. I'm going to put on my running shoes. That's all. Just one basic shoe. Because this is the interesting part. The Zeigarnik effect is a peculiarity of your brain. When you begin something, you have a strange apprehension about not finishing it. You are gently prodded onto the next step by that one shoe, which turns into a mental splinter. You're thinking, well, I've got one shoe on. Before you realize it, you might as well wear the other one. The resistance suddenly gives way to momentum. Consider a video game. There is that pleasant ping with every level up, a little joyous outburst. What causes games to be so addictive? Because they perfectly satisfy our brain's cravings. Instant benefits. Imagine now that you could hack the same machine to do your difficult chores. The secret is right here. Don't hold off on celebrating till the big win. Someday, your brain doesn't care. It now desires the wonderful things. Thus, design your own system of rewards. Little reward, little task. Greater task, greater reward. Simply complete 10 minutes of intense work. Seize the chocolate you've had your eye on. Deleted 3 emails. It's time for a fast look at your preferred social media feed. Although it appears straightforward, you're actually manipulating the chemistry of your brain in a complex game. Before long, your brain begins to make connections. A challenging task equates to immediate enjoyment. Suddenly, what felt like torment begins to feel more like a treasure hunt. Imagine a teaser for a movie. The last scene is all that most folks play. The moment of glory, the winning lap, the standing ovation. Here's the story twist, though. The entire story, not just the conclusion, is what your brain requires. Consider the Olympic athletes. They've mentally run the race thousands of times before they set foot on that track, not merely crossing the finish line with a broken tape. They have pushed through every doubt doubtful moment, heard every breath, and felt every step in their minds. Here's how you can make this work. Do you want to deliver that presentation flawlessly? Don't merely picture the cheers. Play the entire mental film. Click that laptop open with your hand. Imagine typing the first slide. Listen to your voice confidently delivering that first line. Your brain is unable to distinguish between reality and a vivid imagination. By the time you actually sit down to work, your mind is whispering, "Hey, we've been here before." It's essentially practicing for success. We are aware of how this works. All of a sudden, acting feels more like following a path you've already traveled than venturing into the unknown. Have you ever noticed how quickly time passes when playing Beat the Clock? Racing against that ticking deadline has a certain, almost magical quality. Even mundane chores seem like Olympic sports all of a sudden. This is the brilliant move. Make your assignment into a sequence of mini-games. A good challenge is something your brain enjoys, especially if it believes it can win. It's similar to dividing a massive boss fight into thrilling, fast-paced rounds. Have a room that appears to have been struck by a tornado? Don't try to tidy up the mess. Rather, set a 5-minute timer to begin and ask yourself, how many things can I put away before the buzzer? Composing a report, put yourself to the test. 20 minutes and 500 words, all set to go. That pile of work suddenly feels more like a game show, with you as the main competitor. The finest aspect? Every round resets the game, win or lose. Did you not surpass your previous score? No issue. Press restart, then get back in. Before you know it, you're enjoying yourself while completing the assignment and smashing high marks. Why the Lotus method is effective. What makes the Lotus method so successful? This is the underlying science. It rewires your brain for advancement. To start, your brain releases dopamine, the feel-good neurotransmitter, when you celebrate little victories, which makes you want to make more progress. This gradually teaches your brain to link difficult tasks to pleasant emotions. Secondly, it generates momentum. Small steps at first help you feel less overwhelmed and boost your confidence as you proceed. Every step that is finished makes the one after it seem easier, resulting in a potent chain reaction of advancement. Thirdly, it gets rid of the fear of failing. The scary, "what if I fail?" question disappears when you concentrate on micro goals. You may proceed without hesitation when you take little, attainable steps because they feel safe and doable. This method replicates the behaviors of high achievers by dissecting enormous problems into little intentional steps until even the impossibly difficult can be accomplished. It's time to apply the Lotus method now that you are aware of it. Consider a challenging task that you have been avoiding. Start with the tiniest step, break it down, and treat yourself as you go. Recall that making huge leaps isn't the key to success. It's about taking tiny, steady steps. Your secret to achieving that consistency is the Lotus method. Typical pitfalls and strategies for avoiding them. Despite the Lotus method's effectiveness, it's simple to fall into several typical pitfalls that impede advancement. Let's discuss them and how to stay away from them. The first trap is making the plan too complicated. You could lose momentum if you spend too much time dissecting things. Keep in mind that simplicity is essential. Make your steps even simpler if they seem too complicated. What's the tiniest thing I can do now? Ask yourself. For instance, rather than planning my whole desk, begin by picking up a single pen. Begin modestly and gradually increase. The second trap is waiting for inspiration. Motivation is not always dependable. It comes and goes. Because it avoids the requirement for incentive, the Lotus method is effective. Writing a single sentence or putting on a single shoe doesn't require your brain to feel prepared. Rely on the structure rather than your emotions. The third trap is neglecting the benefits. You lose out on the dopamine surge that propels momentum if you don't celebrate your little victories. Make sure there is a reward for each step, no matter how minor. After finishing a micro task, it may be as easy as sipping your favorite beverage. Comparing oneself to others is the fourth trap. Comparing your success to that of others is a certain way to feel disheartened because your journey is unique. Just concentrate on your next move. Who you were yesterday is your only rival. The fifth trap is giving up too soon. The most significant breakthroughs frequently occur immediately after you want to give up. Remember why you started when the resistance is at its worst. Tell yourself, one more step, just one more, as you see your final destination. You underestimate how close you are. Even when things get difficult, you'll keep going if you remain aware of these traps and use the Lotus method to avoid falling into them. The Lotus method is more than a simple tool. It's a change in perspective. It encourages you to embrace little victories, have faith in the process, and create unstoppable momentum. Recall that perfection is not a prerequisite for success. It's all about perseverance. You're doing more than merely difficult things when you use the Lotus method. You're changing the way you tackle every obstacle in life. We appreciate you watching the entire video. The true change starts at this point. It's your time now. This is your task. Consider a large, daunting chore that you have been putting off. First, describe the assignment you're working on in the comments section. The second is how you'll divide it up into a small, doable initial step. The first step of the Lotus method. I have been avoiding working exercise, for instance. I start by putting on my exercise attire and performing simply 5 push-ups. After completing the first step, return and use the phrase "done" to respond to your own comment. By doing this, you hold yourself responsible and encourage others to follow suit. Let's start a chain reaction of success in action. I'll be reading all of your comments and supporting you. Together, let's overcome those obstacles.